So on the arm, like the padding and all that stuff, it's all functional. Like it's all just me painting it over whatever pads they put on it for texture support. So like even when I just planed in my truck, it grabs or whatever. And so the same thing with like how I interact with like just me getting out of my truck is easier because of all the texture. Like it folds. Before it's just carbon fiber, and the carbon fiber, it looks pretty, but it's like it's super slick, and when you're having high amputation, it really messes up how you interact with every other surface. And so like to me, like the people were asking, like this was done by the VA, but like this was just random pads that I cut up with the Dremel and a heat blade that I put on there, and I just got really good at painting, you know, just what I was gonna have on there, just doing the artwork myself, so I didn't have to like find somebody or whatever. And I refer to it as Huitzilopochtli because it's the Aztec god of war, paying homage to my family of indigenous descent on both sides of my mother and father from Tamaulipas and Linares, Mexico. And so the Aztec god of war and the sun, and the obsidian blades that the warriors used there, that's what that was supposed to resemble. And the Serapa is all Texas. The leather, the design, all that stuff is like from the Texas culture. And I'm like, I say that, you know, one of the reasons why I lived or whatever is like my father had a strong warrior culture. Our people have a strong warrior culture. And I was like, you know, if I'm resilient or whatever, it's like all these things that that made me last, like they're a part, like that's a part of what makes America great. That we have like so many different pluribus unum, you know what I mean? You have so many different cultures combining to make up like our one military. And like I know that I'm like, I always say that whenever I was wounded, I was drowning in a canal in Afghanistan, and whenever I woke up, I looked like I thought I was dreaming. And I guess I never explained that to a significant amount of people, but I was like, yeah, I saw the sun through the water, and then I saw, you know, blood fill the water, and at the time I thought it was dreaming, and it was so beautiful because like the sun woke me up, and obviously I crawled out myself, out of the canal, but I'll never forget that, like how beautiful it was, the blood invading the water and just seeing the sun through it. It looked like a dream, so that's why I thought I was dreaming. That's why I started drowning. I was drowning for such a long time because I was confused. It seemed like I was in a dream, and then you realize you're like, oh, like I have to fight. I have to get up. You know, like I'm dying, and so that's the history of that. But it, you know, it's not something that was made specifically for decoration. This is a function, and then I use it, and I'm just like I got really good at painting really fast. You know, whatever they put on there, and whatever functional pads or texture that I got that put on there. And then, so in case I break up these things, so the questions were, this strap I bought, replaced the steel ring with a carabiner, so I can make individual straps that I can take off with whatever material I wanted, and wash them, because before it was just like all year long I would have one strap, and it was just unhygienic. And then the back of it, the cable is the same, but they just attach to a carabiner now, so I can switch all my parts. Like it's more modular, and it made things a lot easier, and I think that's something that all amputees should do. But like I'm glad the VA already started equipping other people's prosthetics here in Audie Murphy and San Antonio. They already started making other people's, having the texture and the foam or whatever, and pitching it to people, because like it's just more use. And like, you know, they don't take the time to explain it. There's pictures like this guy, you know, like what it does, like the soft texture. It's really, now they're starting to do it more, and it's like that made me happy, because I was like, that was what changed prosthetics for me. And I was like, oh, if amputees aren't wearing prosthetics, there's a lot of aspects to it. A lot of it's pain, obviously the financial aspect to it, and that's why when I'm talking about the Bbionuc and Ottobock, I'm saying like I had to fight for this hand, because another hand was like so prominent among doctors that they were like, you need this hand, you need this hand. I was like, I don't care what you say. I was like, I've had this hand before, and it's much more durable. And I was right. This hand, you know what I mean? Like, whenever I'm talking about the island, like, I see amputee, it makes me mad when I see amputees talk about, like, this hand's like 2 or 3 times more expensive than the Bbionuc. And for me, I have one at home. I stopped using it because the fingers would break. Every 10 days I would actually use it like a real hand. And the Bbionuc, you're talking about a year before anything happens to it that's like that you break it. And I'm like, it's a lot tougher, a lot more durable. And some of that is from creating a shell that protects it more, and a belt on the bottom or a strap that whenever I'm gonna jeopardize it, the integrity of it, the structure, I'm like, oh, the fingers, do I want to bend them here and hold something like that, I'll use the belt. But it's like the durability is by far, it's not engineered to break, which I feel like some of the prosthetics, they are engineered to break, where I'm like, oh, as an engineer, I was like, if you're building this, it's almost like you're building it to break so the people, the insurance companies can pay for repairs. And I was like, that's wrong, because I understand amputees at a different, I understand how physically difficult it is every day that I don't have a prosthetic. And that's why it makes me like, I'm like, okay, this is important that people understand that if I'm talking about this prosthetic, it's because I understand how difficult it is missing your arm. And I was like, I think that if I'm talking about prosthetics getting better, it's because I rely on it so much more every year, porque my injuries to this hand are so bad, and that's something where I'm like, people don't know that, so I kind of hide it, where like they kind of see you have this arm, you're like, oh, so at least you have one good arm. And I was like, I have like 60 to 70% of one arm, and that's what they, and I'm like, so to me, I'm like, durability for prosthetics is so important, because like whenever it breaks or something, like you're talking about me being stuck in the middle somewhere and my tire, a flat tire, being able to change my tire and having it break then, because that's happened to me before. And I'm like, so when they're talking about, whenever I first got a prosthetic, they're talking about like, oh, you just come and get it fixed. I was like, you understand that the things that I'm doing, like you're saying that I should be this close to a hospital anytime the prosthetic's gonna break? And I'm like, no, it just needs to be tougher, because I want to really rely on it like a real arm. And that's what I want there to be progression, where they're so good, that eventually, like, you don't have to go for repairs and you don't have to go to the hospital, because that limits everything that you can do. You can't live a regular life. I don't have a caretaker. And I think of the same thing when I look at other things. It's like all these people that have caretakers and they have things taken care of them. Like I do everything myself, and that's why I have that same sense of like wanting to care for amputees, where I'm not gonna bullshit them, because I understand how disabled they are, and especially if they're on their own and they don't have somebody taking care of them, and like they have to work regular jobs and stuff like that, just to be able to get to the prosthetics to the point where they can just function as a regular person. We're like 30 years away from that, but like them getting better every single time they break is a necessity of the evolution for prosthetics.